We're here today to give you a look at Trial of the Gods. This is from Ludus Magnus. It is a deck builder with 4 different ways you're going to score your points, but you're not going to score a lot of points.
Yeah, it's an interesting theme. This is ancient Greece, and you are the Argonauts, basically sailing around the different islands while also participating in the Olympics.
Yes.
So the game actually has this kind of competition feel all the way through because you're competing over 4 different pillars. And this is not like a race or anything. You're not racing up tracks or anything. But at the end of the game, you're getting evaluated based on how well you did in each one of these 4 aspects. And you're getting a few points for being the best, and you're getting a smaller amount of points for being second. So it's all about kind of choosing a lane, trying to do that lane very well, but also maybe trying to at least get second in a couple others, because ultimately the winner is going to be the one that performs best across all 4 pillars.
Yeah, in those 4 areas, you're going to be collecting things like points on some of the cards you collect, maybe some of the enemies you defeat, but at the end, you're basically going to compare that to everyone else at the table to determine, okay, who got first place, who got second place. And that is sort of boiled down to at the end of each round, where you're going to actually compete in the Olympics as well, where it has this track at the bottom of this, which doubles as the score track at the end. But you're basically going to be having 3 competitions in each Olympics to try to score on each of these cards, and the winner getting some bonuses as well.
Yeah, and each one of those 4 pillars kind of is indicated by a different area of the game board that we have set up in front of us. Of course, you'll see the main board here, which is Greece and all these different islands that you're trying to explore, which is one of the pillars, is exploring the most islands in search of the pieces of the Golden Fleece. And of course, there are monsters as well. Fighting the most monsters gives you the domination victory. And then this second board right beneath that is actually some Argonauts that you can find on your journey and recruit them into your player board. Everybody starts with 1, and you can get up to 2 more. Now, this is not necessarily going to contribute to one of the end goals itself, but it gives you the ability to kind of be more flexible and to become more, stronger as you build your crew out and do better in those objectives.
For sure. A lot of the things in the game will or won't contribute to those last things, but almost all of them will help you play the game better. And that brings us to the concept of the fact that this is a deck building game. We have these 6 decks right here, and these are representative of all of the gods. At the beginning, that hero that you take, your first Argonaut, he's going to have a blessing of a couple of the gods. At the beginning of each round, part of the dawn phase is to draw up, and then you're going to reveal some of the cards off of those decks. So for instance, mine here can go from purple and gold. I could take from this one or this one. I take those 2 cards, and then everyone's going to have those cards in front of them. You're going to have some feats that you can have that are effectively ongoing abilities from the very beginning of the game. And you have your captain. You're going to be able to spend energy from this pool to buy cards, to buy feats, to train your captain or your companion once you get them. That's how the beginning of every round starts off. So then the cards that you buy are going to go into your discard pile. That is how you're going to be building your deck. And those cards are interesting because there's a lot of synergies. If you go heavy on one god, you're going to be able to find some cards that might synergize and give you a lot more abilities and flexibility with the things you're trying to do out here on the board.
Yeah, and these cards are multi-use, and they contribute directly to the other 2 aspects of scoring, one of which is the devotion to the gods themselves. Every one of these cards has a victory point indicator. And again, you're not scoring these points. This is just another thing that you're collecting, that you're adding it all up, and whoever has the most is going to get, the crown for that particular pillar. But they have these points, they have a bunch of different actions, and they're also going to be used to compete in the Olympic Games, which is the 4th type of scoring. So these cards being multi-use, I think, is the crux of the game. And as David said, each one of these cards does link to a specific god, and each one of your captains has the blessing of specific gods. But what he didn't mention, and what's interesting here, is that these are all color-coded. So I might have the blessing of the blue god, but the blue god in this case is Aries, but these actually come out and can be shuffled around. So every time you play the game, Aries is not always going to be the blue god, so this captain won't always have the blessing of Aries, so you're going to be having to use some different strategies every time you play.
Yeah, Ryan mentioned those multi-use cards, and we have to stress this. These cards can be used in many, many ways, and those are going to be used primarily during the adventure phase, which is when players take all of the actions. This is the meat and potatoes of the game. You're going to potentially play one of those cards and use one of those stats to move, to explore, to get energy back, all those sorts of things. Some of the cards even have action icons in the upper left-hand corner, so then you can use the ability on that card. Players are going to use 2 actions, so you're going to take up to 2 actions, and then the other player goes. Everyone goes around the table back and forth until everyone's passed. Passing is one of the direct actions you can take. The direct actions not only include passing, but also fighting and also exploring. You can just say, I'm going to fight. Now, you don't need cards to initiate that, but you are going to need cards to actually do the fight. Same thing with exploring. There's some statistics in the upper left-hand corner of each card that allow you to explore, which is what puts these tokens out here. It allows you to take a look at the treasure underneath the temple to see whether it's the Golden Fleece. Once you have an exploration token out there, you're going to be able to claim possession of that treasure at the end of the game. Now, multiple people can be out here, but as you explore, you're going to have to actually use more value of those exploration cards.
Yeah, and the reason they're kind of divided into these 2 categories is that when you explore, when you're fighting, you're trying to meet a specific value. Like David already mentioned the exploration value here, but if you're fighting, you're going to be looking at the monster that's in your particular space, and it has a value as well. In both these instances, you're going to have to meet that value. Exploration is maybe a little easier because it's a solid number. For example, the third person to come here has to have 4. You can just play cards from your hand to reach that 4. But if you're fighting, there's actually some dice rolled as well that could modify the monsters that you're fighting. It could give them some higher strength. It could give them a special ability that triggers on specific sides of these dice. But both the exploration and the fighting are done on this map, and you need to be in the space that you're going to. Like, you can only interact with the space you're at, whether you're leaving that exploration token or fighting the monster. Of course, both of these come with their own rewards. Exploration will give you points towards that exploration pillar. Fighting the monsters will give you points to the domination aspect, but also fighting monsters is what gives you control of these different temples and allows you to put your flag on them. And while that, again, doesn't directly contribute to your in-game scoring, a lot of cards are going to get stronger based on how many temples you have. Some of your actions get better if you have more temples. So it's just another thing you need to do to kind of give your deck a little bit more utility.
Yeah, and the other great thing about claiming those temples is you're able to get one of these bonuses. Whenever you claim a temple by defeating one of the enemies on an island, you're able to move one of these up. And this does a couple things. One, it opens up other blessings for cards maybe you didn't have access to before, or maybe more of cards that you already had access to, but you're also going to get the bonus on the token. These are variably set up at the beginning of the game, so my bonuses are in different colors than Ryan's, but you get those bonuses that can do a wide variety of things, meaning helping you fight, or helping you explore, helping you during the Olympics, all that sort of thing. The game gives you a lot of opportunity to move around this board, to get things done that you need to get done. It's not just sort of a slow road of moving using the ship action and your captain, but you can actually deploy your companions. You can deploy monsters that you've defeated under your control. They won't hurt you anymore, but you can put them in the way of the other players to make things more challenging for them.
Yeah, there's quite a bit more to all of this than we probably could talk about in this single video. I mean, there's ways that new monsters are coming out. You're going to be interacting with different sea event cards as you travel across the sea. You're going to be, like we said, recruiting those different Argonauts from the different spaces and then deploying them out to take different actions. So this is, like David said, the meat and potatoes of the game. This is all of the actions you're taking are going to be interacting with all of these different systems. Of course, the whole idea here, though, is you want to kind of try to extend your turnout as long as possible. Take the most actions, do more with fewer cards, which is where the deck building element really comes into play. Some of those stronger cards allow you to use their abilities to maybe do some things that you'd be spending actions on otherwise. So you really do need to approach it with a strategy of like, okay, I'm going to play a very exploration heavy game this game. And as you play this game over and over, you'll kind of learn what all the gods are really good at. And you'll kind of know, okay, well, if I want to do exploration in this situation, I maybe want to get, some Poseidon cards or whatever. And that kind of guides your strategy through the game.
Right, and after the adventure phase, when everyone is passed, you're going to have an enemy phase. This is a very streamlined phase where you just look at the board. If your captain is in a space with an enemy, you're going to take some damage. If you have temples that you've claimed that have an enemy there, you're going to take some damage. So you're going to want to get maybe your companions out to those temples to defend them so you're not taking that damage and so on. But that's the end of the enemy phase, and then you finally go on to the Olympics phase. The Olympics phase is going to be dictated by a card that was drawn by the person last in turn order at the beginning of the round. You're going to simply look at that card and determine what 2 characteristics are going to be of value here. Now, the good news is you get to draw up to your full hand size before the Olympics begin, so you'll have a full hand size to play cards. You're going to play one card at a time. Every player plays one card face down. When everyone's ready, they reveal it. Whatever icons will contribute to that event will move you up this track and get more favor. Now, there are some other things that can benefit you. Your hero or your captain and your companions, they have some icons on them as well that allow you to potentially roll some dice to get a little extra. There's other icons and cards that might let you start with some. There's even some cards from some of the gods that have powers that you can use to really make big moves during the Olympics.
Well, yeah, and that's a key thing too, back to that hand management idea, because you're drawing up to your hand size every round, at the start of every round and at the start of the Olympics phase. So you don't really need to worry about holding on to cards.
Yeah.
However, if you play a card that's a good Olympics card, if you play it during that first phase, you probably won't draw it again because it's in your discard pile. And after the Olympics phase, you're drawing back up. But if there's a card that you really want that's going to really help you fight or explore, if you play that during the Olympics phase, it's getting discarded again and you're drawing back up. So you do need to kind of decide how you're going to, approach this. And that's why actually being in last place and getting to choose the Olympic event you're competing over that round helps, because you can look at the icons, you know what's in your deck, you know what you've been building towards, so you can pick, a particular event that might do well with the icons that you already have in your deck and kind of stack things a little in your favor.
Yeah, it is really interesting because the cards themselves are multi-use, but then when you consider that there's the Olympics and the adventure phase, it's like ×2 the multi-use there. Then you're going to have a sunset phase, which is basically the cleanup phase. You start back over with another round. And if you're playing the advanced game, which is what we did here, you're going to play 5 rounds like this. One other note I wanted to make about the advanced game, if you'd seen the board here, there are these icons on top of the temples that we haven't even addressed. In the basic game, you actually construct those pieces with those icons face down and they're meaningless. But in the advanced game, it's kind of cool because it gives you a little bit more decision space. When you play a card and your captain happens to be in a place that has an icon, if you take that action, it gives you a bonus of that. So it's just yet another layer of like, ooh, I'm going to do that right now because it's going to be a juicier version of that action.
Yeah, and that's a whole other aspect. I mean, there's a lot of systems layered onto this game that we haven't even really discussed. We mentioned that there's an energy system where you're going to be spending some energy. You're getting it back every round. There's a feat system where you're getting to choose up to 3 feats in the game. These feats cost energy, but they also give you some energy back. So you're trying to kind of determine that. So basically, I guess what I'm saying is every time you play this game, you're going to be building a very variable player area as you choose which temple upgrades to get, as you build your deck with the different gods, and as you choose your feats, and even your companions, because there are more companions, more Argonauts in the game than you have out. So every game you're seeing different Argonauts as well. So variability is something important to you. There is quite a bit of that in this game.
Yeah, and now we need to talk about end game scoring, because this is the part where if you don't cover this with all the players at the table at the beginning of the game, they're going to be maybe upset with you at the end of the game. The end game scoring has those 4 categories that we talked about. And when you do this, say for instance, you look at the enemies, the domination score, everyone's going to look at the enemies they've defeated, not the Argonauts, just the monsters. And you're going to look at the little laurel sort of victory points, if you will, on those cards. Whoever has the most of those laurels, they get first place. So yet this is another competition. The next person gets second place. And there's points awarded, the final victory points for these places. First place is 6 points, second place is 4 points. So in this game, every one of the 4 categories had, I won 6, he got 4. He got 6, I got 4. And then the last 2 categories actually give 5, then 3. And again, in a 4-player game, then it's fewer and fewer after that.
Well, yeah, and it's definitely, and I don't know if you understand just from David describing this, it doesn't matter if I have defeated 40 strength versus monsters and David only defeated 2, I still only get 6 points. So there's this element of recognizing, okay, I've done enough here.
Yeah, I don't need to do any more here.
Doing more doesn't actually help you because you're not adding up all these points together. The same thing goes for the Olympics. If you've gotten enough and that you're rewarded with these Olympic tokens, these victory tokens, if you have a giant stack, then maybe it's time to not worry about the Olympics and shift strategy because you know that you're guaranteed those 6 points. And so, yeah, doing too much of one thing can actually be to your detriment in this game.
Yeah, a little bit. You want to pace yourself. Again, kind of to take the Olympics analogy.
Right.
You want to pace yourself because in our last game, I did the Olympics very much. And what happened is I got to a point where in the last round, Ryan knew he wasn't able to beat me
so
in the Olympics.
Why did I even worry about
So it took some of that decision space out of his mind so he could focus on other important
Well, and I
things.
knew you can see and you could recognize, okay, well, I'm not getting the Olympic victory. I'm not going to even get, so I need to make sure that I get one of the other ones. I need to make sure that I've killed the most monsters or I've explored the most temples, because you have to be always watching what other players are doing and try to hope, if you can win 2 categories, you probably have a pretty strong chance of winning the game. However, in a 4-player game, that's going to be a lot harder to do.
It'll be almost impossible to do. And if you do, you'll get 22 points. That's the most points you can get in this game. If you win all 4 categories, it's 22 points, noted by the last space on the score track. But that is Trial of the Gods. If you have any questions at all about it, please make them in the comments below. We'll get down there and answer whatever we can. Until next time, make sure everyone has fun at the table, and we'll see you then.